A burning, prickling sensation surged up to her face. Through half-slitted eyes, her blurry gaze just managed to make out the man across the table, both familiar and a stranger. He sat with a lazy posture, his long legs crossed casually. Above the collar of his smoky gray shirt, a pale chin with clean, sharp lines. The dinner had been going on for half an hour, but his body hadn't leaned close to the round table even once, let alone touched the wineglass in front of him. Xiaoxin, go on. A low, pleading voice came from her boss sitting on her right. Shen Yao felt a sudden sting in the tip of her nose. The company was running a deficit, and all employees hadn't received their full salaries for the year. The boss had pleaded and begged everywhere, finally securing an investment and partnership, with the condition that the other party could pick one technical expert. But among all the elite at the table who had toasted him, not one could move this man to be lenient. It meant he wasn't satisfied with any of them. Unwilling to let the deal fall through, the boss gritted his, no matter the cost. He told the only one who hadn't offered a toast yet, Shen Yao, to stand up. She was just a secretary. Her duty was simply to safeguard the contract to be signed tonight. When she agreed to come tonight, she hadn't expected to drink. Nor had she expected the CEO of the partner company to be Fu Xinyan. Fu Xinyan. The name echoed in her heart again. A sensation like countless fine needles pricking deep into her eyes. She quickly lowered her gaze, trying to soothe the piercing ache that had shot straight to her pupils in the searing, damp heat threatening to spill over. Then, she tipped her head back and drank the last cup. Her boss didn't know yet. Fu Xinyan was her ex-boyfriend. Her ex-boyfriend of 6 years. The ex-boyfriend she had callously dumped. Right after the Gaokao, as adults, they had one absurd night in a hotel. Fu Xinyan had been gentle, taking her again and again, clinging to her, demanding she say she loved him. She had given him the word signboard. The young master wasn't surprised, just pressed her down and took her fiercely one more time. When it was over, they went their separate ways, asking her to toast him. Someone as arrogant and untamed as Fu Xinyan. It would be a miracle if he didn't just storm out with a darkened face, and they still hoped he would sign the contract. Feeling she had done all she could possibly be asked, Shen Yao drank the wine and stopped caring. Leaning her head on one hand, she tilted it against the table, her gaze lifting with the movement. Finally saw the man change his posture. The assistant beside him, understanding the cue, picked up the wine glass from the table and placed it in the man's hand. Shen Yao was stunned. A sudden realization dawned on her. So his refusal to drink earlier was all to wait for this moment. He was enjoying watching her pride and self-respect shatter on the floor. He must be feeling utterly pleased. The boss, overjoyed, immediately refilled Shen Yao's glass. His face a picture of earnest flattery. President Fu. Xiaoshan is one of our company's most capable employees. Though her position isn't high, her abilities are absolutely no worse than any technical expert. Fu Xinyan toyed with the glass in his hand. Not drinking, not an expert. Seeing the man's brows knit lightly, the boss vigorously promoted. But she's as good as one. Silence fell over the banquet table. Everyone stared at Fu Xinyan's reaction, and the glass he held in his hand but did not drink from. After a long pause, the man's voice came lazy, faint, and tinged with a low laugh, to very light words. Is that so? His voice was as light as a feather, yet it made Shen Yao's heart sink like a stone. She looked up, her drunken eyes trying to see Fu Xinyan clearly through the haze. He still maintained that careless posture, his slender fingers gently turning the glass. The amber liquid inside swirled in ripples with his movement. Since she's as good as an expert, Fu Xinyan finally spoke, his tone carrying a trace of elusive mockery. Then have a drink with me, he finished, raising the glass in his hand, but made no move to drink. He just watched Shen Yao quietly. The boss was overjoyed and hastily nudged Shen Yao. Xiaoshan, quickly, toast President Fu. Shen Yao felt her throat tighten. her stomach churning. She had already drunk 3 glasses of Bayo. One more and she might truly make a fool of herself on the spot. But she had no choice. For the company, for the colleagues waiting for their salaries to celebrate the new year, she had to drink. She took a deep breath, propped up her swaying body, and picked up the full glass of Bayo. In front of her, President Fu, I toast you. Her voice was somewhat hoarse, but she struggled to maintain composure. Fu Xin looked at her, a flicker of an inscrutable emotion passing through his deep eyes. He didn't speak, just gave a slight nod, signaling her to continue. Shen Weiyao raised the glass and downed it in one gulp. The pungent liquid slid down her throat like a ball of fire burning inside her. Suppressing the urge to cough, she placed the empty glass on the table and nodded at Fu Xin. Thank you, President Fu. As she said this, the scene before her eyes began to spin, the whole world whirling dizzily. Good, the boss clapped excitedly. President Fu, then can we? Not so fast. Fu Xin interrupted him. His gaze still fixed on Shen Weiyao. Miss Shen has quite the capacity. How about we have another drink? His words caused a stir among the guests. The boss's face instantly paled, but he didn't dare say anything, only forcing an awkward smile. President Fu, you jest. Shao Kahn has already had quite a bit. Oh? Fu Xin raised an eyebrow, a trace of mockery in his tone. She seems quite alert to me. Shen Weiyao bit her lip, her nails digging deep into her palms. She knew Fu Xin was deliberately making things difficult for her. But why was he doing this? Just because she had dumped him 6 years ago, he had to humiliate her like this today? I'll drink, she suddenly spoke, her voice not loud, but resolute. She picked up the wine bottle again, poured her glass full. This time, she didn't hesitate, tipping her head back and drinking it down. 3 glasses of Baya, you on an empty stomach. Her consciousness was already beginning to blur, but she stubbornly remained standing, refusing to fall. Fu Xin looked at her, the playfulness in his eyes gradually fading, replaced by a complex emotion. He set down the glass in his hand and slowly stood up. Enough, he said. Those 2 words made everyone at the table breathe a sigh of relief. I'll sign the contract, Fu Xin continued. But I have one condition. The boss nodded hurriedly. President Fu, please tell us. Any condition, we agree. Fu Xinyan's gaze settled on Shen Weiyao, the corner of his mouth curling into a meaningful smile. I want Miss Shen to be my personal assistant, he said, for 3 months. As the words fell, dead silence enveloped the private room. The boss stared wide-eyed, unable to believe his ears. President Fu, this Xiao Shen is our company secretary. See? Unwilling? Fu Xin raised an eyebrow, then forget the contract. Willing. We're willing. The boss quickly agreed, afraid Fu Xin would change his mind. But Shen Weiyao was stunned. She looked at Fu Xin, trying to read something from his expression. But he just looked at her coolly, no discernible emotion in those eyes. His dinner. What do you think? Fu Xin asked. Shen Weiyao opened her mouth, wanting to refuse, but found she couldn't speak. She knew if she refused, not only would the deal fall through, but she would also implicate the whole company. Hi. She began, but was hit by a wave of intense dizziness. She staggered, nearly falling. A strong arm promptly encircled her waist, steadying her. It was Fu Xin. The faint scent of tobacco mixed with cologne on him instantly surrounded her. It seems Miss Shen is truly drunk, Fu Xin said, looking down at her, his voice low and gentle. Let me take you back. Shen Weiyao wanted to push him away, but found she had no strength at all. She could only let him lead her, his arm around her, as they walked out of the private room. The corridor was quiet, only the sound of their footsteps. Why, Shen? Weiyao finally couldn't help but ask. Why are you doing this to me? Fu Xin stopped walking, turned to look at her. His fingers gently brushed her cheek, a movement so tender it frightened her. Because you owe me, he said. What you owed me 6 years ago, it's time to pay it back now. Shen Weiyao's heart sank like a stone. She remembered that night 6 years ago, remembered the hurtful words she had said to him. Sorry, she murmured. But Fu Xinyan laughed, a smile tinged with bitterness. Too late, he said. Saying sorry now was already too late. He helped her into the car, then got into the driver's seat. The car started slowly, driving into the depths of the night. Shen Weiyao leaned against the window, watching the scenery flash by outside. Hair silently tracing down her face. She knew, starting today, the entanglement between her and Fu Xinyan had only just begun. And this reckoning, 6 years overdue, was destined not to be peaceful. The morning sunlight pierced through the floor minus to minus ceiling windows, making Shen Weiyao squint. She sat on the steps in front of the Fu Group building, clutching the thin job offer letter in her hand. Her head still throbbed faintly. The hangover from last night seemed not to have completely dissipated. Shen Weiyao, are you sure you want to go in? Her best friend's phone call from last night still echoed in her ears. Fu Xinyan obviously wants revenge. Isn't this walking right into the trap? She took a deep breath and stood up. No matter what, she had to repay the debt she owed from 6 years ago. Entering the building, the receptionist politely directed her to the HR department. Everything went smoothly until she had signed all the paperwork, took her employee badge, and was about to head towards the CEO's private elevator. Just then, the elevator doors opened. Fu Xinyan stepped out, followed by a young, pretty girl. The girl was fashionably dressed, with immaculate makeup, intimately clinging to Fu Xinyan's arm, her head resting on his shoulder. Shen Weiyao's heart sank. She recognized the girl. It was Lin Wanner, a recently popular starlet. Oh, isn't the secretary Shen? Lin Wanner, sharp-minded, spotted Shen Weiyao standing to the side. She provocatively lifted her chin, her voice sickly sweet. Xinyan, is this the, old classmate you mentioned? Fu Xinyan followed her gaze. When he saw Shen Weiyao, there wasn't a flicker of emotion in his eyes, as if she were merely a stranger. He replied inferently, his gaze sweeping over Shen Weiyao before moving away. Let's go. Oh, I'll take you to the set. Okay. Lin Wanner happily tightened her grip on his arm. Before leaving, she didn't forget to turn back and give Shen Weiyao a triumphant smile. Miss Chen, I heard you're here to be Xin Yan's personal assistant. You must work hard, you know? After all, some people can only stay by his side by such means. Shen Weiyao's fingers clenched the employee badge tightly, her knuckles turning white. She wanted to turn and leave, but her feet seemed rooted to the spot, immovable. What is it, Assistant Shen? Fu Xinyan suddenly stopped and looked back at her, a mocking smile curling at the corner of his mouth. Planning to skip work on your first day. His voice wasn't loud, but it was enough for the surrounding people to hear. The nearby HR staff cast curious glances, whispering amongst themselves. Is that the new CEO's personal assistant? I heard she got in through connections. Doesn't look like much. Shen Weiyao's face instantly turned deathly pale. She looked up, meeting Fu Xinyan's eyes directly. President Fu, I'm here to work, not to be insulted by you and your friend. Work? Fu Xinyan chuckled as if hearing a joke. Shen Weiyao, don't forget who let you in. If you can't even handle a little grievance like this, you can leave right now. You? Shen Weiyao trembled with anger. Lin Wanner covered her mouth and giggled beside him. Xinyan, don't be so harsh. After all, she went through a lot to get this job. Fu Xinyan ignored her, just looking coldly at Shen Weiyao. The elevator is over there. Go up yourself. If you're not in my office within 10 minutes, the contract is void. With that, he turned and left with Lin Wanner. Shen Weiyao stood in place, watching their retreating backs. Tears welled in her eyes, but she stubbornly refused to let them fall. She took a deep breath and turned towards the elevator. The elevator was empty, leaning against the cold metal wall. She finally couldn't hold back. Covering her mouth as she cried silently. 6 years ago, she thought there had been genuine feelings between them. 6 years later, she finally understood that some wounds truly couldn't be healed. The elevator dinged, reaching the top floor. Shen Weiyao wiped her tears, straightened her emotions, and stepped out. At the end of the corridor was the CEO's office. She took a deep breath and walked over. No matter what, she had to persevere. Not just for the company, but to repay that debt. She reached the office door, about to knock when it opened from the inside. Fu Xin Ian stood at the door, a file in his hand. Seeing her, his eyes remained icy. Come in. He turned and walked into the office, giving her no time to react. Shen Yao followed him in and closed the door. The office was large, decorated in a simple, austere style, much like its owner. This is today's schedule. Fu Xin Ian threw a file onto the desk. There's a meeting at 10. Prepare the materials. And, from now on, you are not to enter this office without my permission. Shen Weiyao picked up the file, saying in a low voice. Yes, President Fu. She turned to leave, but Fu Xin Ian suddenly called her back. Shen Weiyao. She stopped, not turning around. 6 years ago, you dumped me saying you were bored. Fu Xin Ian's voice came from behind her, carrying a barely perceptible tremor. Now it's my turn. Shen Weyao's heart ached sharply. She finally understood. What Fu Xin Ian wanted wasn't revenge, but to make her taste the bitterness of being discarded too. I understand, she said softly, then pushed the door open and left. Inside the office, Fu Xin Ian stood by the window, watching the pedestrians hurrying by below, a yellowed photograph clutched tightly in his hand. In the photo, a young girl smiled brilliantly. A young man gazed at her with gentle adoration. That was them. 6 years ago. Shen Weiyao, he murmured under his breath. This time, I won't let you run away again.